Morning, everyone. I hope each of you had a good Independence Day celebration. I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Preston, our Director of Economic Development, and I wanted to focus on two subjects today in my comments and turn it open for questions. And the first area I wanted to comment on is the end of the fiscal year's budget numbers that Department of Finance Administration released today. This is July 5th. Our fiscal year closed on June 30th, and I'm delighted that we ended the fiscal year with a budget surplus of $177 million. This is a significant surplus that's a result of proper budgeting. Perhaps you could say conservative budgeting, but that's the pattern we always follow in Arkansas. And then secondly, a growing economy. And I am particularly delighted with the income tax collections numbers. And we've had 6 months of the tax reduction impact to have experience with, and notwithstanding the $100 million income tax cut that was enacted in the last session of the legislature, we've had a 4.4% growth in net income tax collections. That's after refunds. A growth of 4.4% in the income tax collections over the previous year, notwithstanding the tax cut. And I think from that you can say the sky is not fallen because we had a tax cut, but that as we expected, it helps our economy to grow, and the income tax collections increased, and so in essence we had more money for state services. In addition, sales tax collections went up 3.3% after adjustments, and so our income tax collections actually increased at a higher rate than our sales tax collections. Delighted with that news. It puts us in good position with a $177 million surplus as we enter the budgeting process for next year. The second topic that I wanted to bring up is the Europe trip. Director Preston and I will be leaving on our second Europe trip for purposes of economic development. We'll be attending the Farnborough Air Show, which Arkansas has had a presence in for the last 10 years. And the consistency in these presentations and in these markets probably makes the biggest difference. And so we're going to be attending the air show in Farnborough that will have 84 of the top 100 aerospace companies across the globe. It will be represented by 50 countries there at the air show. Arkansas will have a significant presence. Last year at the Paris Air Show, we were able to call on our companies, but also other companies. One of the results of that, Aerojet Rocketdyne at Camden and Calhoun County, expanded with 85 new jobs, $18 million investment. And of course, aero defense is a big part of the economy of our state with $1.6 billion in exports. So our visit there at the air show is important. Hopefully, our visits there will continue to result in growth in our economy and the expansion of our aero defense industry here in Arkansas. We'll be joined by the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Printzler, and then also about 5 governors will be there, and so we'll not have the field to myself. It'll be a competitive environment, but Arkansas's presence and our history in the aero defense industry will be well noted and received at the Farnborough Air Show. From there, we'll go to Berlin, where we'll be opening up our European office in Berlin. The legislature approved this and budgeted the money for it. This will be our third office on the global stage. This will add to Japan and China in terms of economic development personnel. And with the presence in Germany that will represent the European market, it is a great opportunity to continue to expand our global presence, our marketing, of our commerce here in Arkansas, our manufactured capacity in this state. Berlin and Germany. Germany is the largest foreign direct investor in Arkansas. And so that is a significant presence and opportunity for us. We have over 23 German-owned companies here in Arkansas, 13 French-owned companies in Arkansas, and 11 companies owned by representatives in the United Kingdom. So you can see from that how the presence of a European office in Berlin as a center point will be a great addition to our global team, our economic development efforts in this state, and hopefully will produce results as time goes on. This is a recognition that Arkansas is a player on the world stage. Our global presence is reflected in our retail industry, our manufacturing, and aero defense. We want to continue to build and expand on that. The fact that Director Preston and I are there in person making these calls, meeting with the ambassador there in Germany, I believe will make a difference for Arkansas and lay the foundation for continued growth in the future. With that, I'll ask Mike if you have anything to add there.
Thanks, Governor. And just to, to add to the Governor, we plan on right now scheduled meetings over 20 companies between the two countries while we're there. That's not to say that we'll have opportunities for additional meetings, but we're excited to talk to some of the companies that have a presence in Arkansas, talk about any impediments that they're currently having to growth and how we can help them work through that. But then also to recruit new companies. We're always looking to have that, that presence to strengthen our story around the world, that people know about the Arkansas story. They know about Walmart, they know about Tyson. We want to continue to tell that story, but we want to tell them about companies like Matova and Orbea, the smaller companies that have sprung up in the last year to 18 months, and the growth that we have here in Arkansas and why it's such a great place for them to do business. We look forward to having, again, a booth at the air show. This is the second time that we've showcased with a booth. The first time at the Paris Air Show last time, and this time with the booth. And in this industry, if you're not at the table, you're very likely to end up on the menu. So we want to be there to make sure that we're protecting that we have in the state. Companies like Dassault, Falcon Jet are so important to us, and us being there, it kind of continues that message to show our support. With that, Governor, turn it back to you.
Any questions?
On the revenue report, the surplus that the state's built up, if you give any thought of what you'd like that money to go toward, and also you talked about the impact of tax cuts, where you're thinking right now and what you want to do next, tax cuts next year session?
Well, in terms of future tax cuts, I've simply indicated and sent the signal that there will be additional tax cuts on the agenda of the next session. I've not specified the amount. I want to work with the legislature to identify that. I wanted to have these complete budget numbers in, and I want to be careful and cautious about how we approach that. But these numbers are very encouraging as we enter the session. Secondly, in terms of what to do with the surplus, I like the direction we're going in our state of creating the long-term reserve fund. I want to continue to put money aside for that, because as our economy is doing well now, we're expanding. We have 3.8% unemployment rate. We're creating jobs. We all know that at some point in time there will be a slowdown of the economy, and we want to budget wisely for that. And so I want to see as much of this surplus as possible put into a reserve fund. We always have one-time needs. It could be, last year it was prison space, it was shoring up Medicaid. There will be one-time needs that will be taking part of this surplus, but we want to put as much as possible toward the long-term reserve fund. I did want to add too, because some people make the case, well, you budget, this doesn't help us in our general state services, because you want to create the surplus, so you just budget conservatively so that we will have the surplus. And that really is not an accurate reflection of it, because one, you always have, under our Constitution and RSA and our requirements for a balanced budget, you have to budget somewhat conservatively to make sure you don't go over the line. And so as long as we have some growth in the economy, you're going to have that surplus. And secondly, this surplus also reflects the money that has not been spent by our agencies. And so if they've saved money from the slower growth of our state employees and the hiring freeze, if there's been conservative spending, they can turn some of that money back to the state. And so that is reflected, the turn back from the different agencies as well. I know economic development's participated in turning back some of that money. And so all of that results in this surplus. We're going to have those surpluses, but this amount is healthy and it reflects the growing economy that we have.
Any update on execution? And also, could you respond to the possibility of using an alternate from the 3-drug protocol, using a barbiturate as states like Texas have?
The next step in the process is to receive the mandate from the Supreme Court, which we have not yet received. And then the Attorney General would advise as to which individuals need to have the date set. And then at that point, we will evaluate where we are in terms of the capacity to carry out any execution in this state in terms of the availability of drugs. As you know, one of the drugs of the 3-drug cocktail has expired, and so there will be another source that will be needed. In terms of alternative means of carrying out an execution, it is important that we stick with that means, the 3-drug cocktail, so that what has been approved by the court will not, if we change it, will simply result in additional delays. So I would look at utilizing the same process that the legislature has approved and the court has affirmed, and we will take the next step to see on the availability of the supply that we need.
Do you know where the agency is at on finding that additional drug?
I do not.
And then also, do you think that it was a mistake to go ahead and purchase that drug, knowing that there was an expiration date, knowing that it was kind of up in the air?
No, absolutely not. It was the right thing to do, because had you not made the purchase of the drugs, you would have no capacity to carry it out. The dates would not have been set, and the court challenge would not have occurred, and the affirmation of our process would not have occurred. So, it was absolutely essential that we take those additional steps that have not been taken previously. Otherwise, we'll not have any chance of having the court approve what we're doing and to be able to proceed forward.
If difficulties continue in obtaining a new source supply for these drugs, would you prefer to just keep the current law that we have on the books through the next legislative session, or if the drugs are still not forthcoming, then consider alternatives?
We'll take it a step at a time. We just had this indication from the Supreme Court that our law on confidentiality is constitutional, it is correct, and they upheld it. Therefore, suppliers have confidence now that it will be kept confidential. The Supreme Court has affirmed that, and with that protection, I have some basis for hope that we'll be able to have the supply necessary to faithfully execute the law. So I have no plan beyond that. I know that our Director of Corrections is looking at the supply. It takes some time. Let's see how that develops.
Mr. Gilmore has left your employment. There's been some speculation you're going to create 2 deputy chiefs of staff and hire Mr. Gossage for one of them. Where are you?
Well, this is the first day without John Gilmore. We miss him and wish him well as he moves into the private sector. In terms of the future reorganization, possible reorganization of the governor's office, I expect to have more information on that Thursday, and beyond that, I'll wait till then.
What taxes are the most likely candidates for cutting in the next session?
Well, you know, my priority is reducing the income tax rate in this state, so that's my focus. I hope that we can take on that challenge again to continue to give us a more competitive income tax rate in this state. Mike and I have actually experienced people sitting in our office and saying high income tax rate in this state is a factor. And so I'd like to be able to get that down. It's not something that's done quickly or overnight, but it's a long-term process. And so when we have the opportunity in January, I hope that the legislature will buy into further reducing the income tax rate in this state.
Do you think the state can afford an income tax cut as high as you were able to do last time around, or you already have to scale back what you want to do?
I would suspect that it would be scaled back from that, or the other way to approach it is just phase it in over a couple of years. And so we'll be measuring that, but I have an objective, and that's to reduce the income tax rate, but I also want to make sure that we meet the needs of this state, we don't overstretch ourselves, and that we can manage the tax cuts year to year that we enact. And I think, again, this is an encouragement whenever we have a 4.4% gain in our net income tax collections, despite the tax cuts that we had. We'll have 6 more months of experience by next January, so we'll continue to watch that.
Governor, how important is what the Adequacy Committee decides in terms of school funding to any future tax cut plans?
Well, the results of the Adequacy Committee is extraordinarily important to the strength of education in our state, but also it has budgetary impacts. So there's all kinds of ingredients. It's our ability to manage the prison population and whether we have to invest more in prisons. That's a budgetary impact. It makes a difference whether we are slowing the growth of Medicaid based upon the reforms we've put into place. All of those have an impact on what we can do in terms of our income tax cuts. But also it's the efficiency. Whenever we can restrain the growth of state government, that gives you more leeway to have tax cuts as well. And I've simply sent the signal we're going to have a round of tax cuts. We will see how that develops in our budget review as we go through that between now and January.
And not to piggyback on that, but you brought up prison pops, and last week, independent reports of the Board of Corrections anticipated a constant 2.4% growth to, 22-some thousand folks in our prison rolls within the next 10 years. Is it time to start talking space again and actually increasing it? I know the prison projection last session went nowhere. Do we have that debate again?
I don't anticipate that. There will be a debate in terms of the report from the Justice Reform Group as to any reforms that we need in our incarceration policy. Whenever you measure our county jail backup, and that's usually the best measure of how we're doing our prison space, we're down from close to 3,000 down to around 1,000 on a regular basis. And so that's about where it should be. So right now we're managing our prison population well. We want to make sure that public safety has the first priority and the budget second. But at this point I would not anticipate a need for future prison expansion budget dollars next year. All right. With that, thank you all very much. Have a great day.